Now, generally speaking, most actors will do everything within their power to ensure that you know they're appearing in an upcoming movie, especially if it's a huge buzzy project with a killer cast and celebrated filmmaker at the helm. But it's still common for audiences to completely blank on actors who, for one reason or another, simply didn't draw attention to themselves while acting in their latest project, as was certainly the case with these recent films. So, get your fake noses and big spectacles out, we're going undercover. I'm Guy Incognito, this is What Culture, and here are 10 actors you had no idea were in recent movies. Number 10. Anthony Mackie, The Electric State. It's not remotely surprising that the Russo brothers' new film, The Electric State, features appearances from a few MCU actors. Though, did you even know that Anthony Mackie, of all people, was also in this movie? Mackie provides the most prominent voiceover role in the film, lending his vocal chops to Herman, the sentient robot who becomes fast buddies with Chris Pratt's hero Keats. While Mackie has an unmistakable, totally distinctive voice, the Russos opted to modulate Herman's speech to the point that it's basically impossible to know who you're listening to, and certainly not that it's the vocals of the new Captain America. Mackie clearly has a fun time playing the wisecracking robot sidekick and gives one of the more entertaining performances in the film. Yet, given the hefty sum he was presumably paid to star in The Electric State, it's pretty shocking that he's effectively unrecognizable, save for his name appearing in the credits. Number 9. Rory McCann, Gladiator II. Rory McCann is undeniably best known for portraying the Hound in Game of Thrones and the villainous henchman Lurch, that's Mr. Yarp to you in Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz. But McCann appeared in his biggest movie project to date last year when he had a small supporting role in Ridley Scott's Gladiator II, playing Tegula, the leader of the Praetorian Guard. McCann is present throughout a number of scenes and even gets to briefly interact with Denzel Washington's Macronus, yet ultimately gets little substantial to do, which, when combined with his slightly disguising getup, means you might have failed to appreciate you were looking at the Hound at all. Many were left baffled on social media once they realized the part was indeed played by McCann, considering it a waste that an actor with such imposing screen presence didn't get that much to do at all. And I mean, personally speaking, I'll describe all of Gladiator 2 as a big waste, but hey ho, that's a whole other kettle of fish. And to be fair, it's entirely possible that McCann had a larger role in the original cut, which, according to Scott, ran close to 4 whole hours, with many of his scenes maybe being cut for time. Number 8. Jonathan Hyde, The Brutalist. Brady Corbet's sublime The Brutalist isn't really the sort of movie where anyone expects any sort of grandstanding cameo, but there was nevertheless a surprising supporting appearance made by an actor who was everywhere in the 1990s. We are, of course, talking about Jonathan Hyde, the Australian character actor best known for playing Butler Cadbury in Richie Rich, Van Pelt in Jumanji, J. Bruce Ismay in Titanic, Warren Westridge in Anaconda, and Dr. Chamberlain in The Mummy. You know, the guy who's all, "No, you mustn't read from the book." Ah, love that guy. Now, despite this hot streak throughout the latter part of the 90s, Hyde has spent the last quarter century typically appearing in smaller movies, TV shows, and on the stage. So it simply wasn't expected to see him show up in The Brutalist as Leslie Woodrow, a builder who comes to blows with architect Laszlo Toth, played by Adrian Brody. Hyde, now naturally considerably older than he was in his most iconic 90s roles, while wearing glasses and rocking an American accent, disappears into this part quite effortlessly. Number 7. Topher Grace, Heretic. The marketing for A24's recent horror hit Heretic indicated that the film was a three-hander starring only Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. So naturally, no one expected Topher friggin' Grace to suddenly show up halfway through for a hot minute. Grace turns up for a brief scene as Elder Kennedy, a superior at the church attended by the 2 missing Mormon girls, who visits Mr. Reed's house to investigate their disappearance. Though it feels like the film is gearing up to have Kennedy return later on, he simply goes on his merry way after talking to Reed, and that's that. Indeed, Grace is in the movie for a couple of minutes at most, and because he's wearing glasses, a beanie hat, and is rocking dyed blonde hair to boot, he's not immediately recognizable at all. After all, why would Grace of all people show up in a horror movie for a mere random cameo? But that's precisely what filmmakers Scott Beck and Brian Woods were going for, deciding to cast an actor who the audience would expect to see more from if they showed up in a film. That said, they crucially failed to underestimate how few viewers would actually realize they were looking at Grace in the first place. Number 6. Leah Remini. Flight Risk. Mel Gibson's new action thriller Flight Risk is, like Heretic, largely a three-person movie starring a bold Mark Wahlberg, Michelle Dockery, and, funnily enough, Topher Grace himself again. That's 2 on the Grace klaxon this week, which we definitely always have in every video. Anyway, there are a few small voice roles peppered throughout the film. Chief among them, an unexpected cameo from one of the most recognizable TV sitcom stars of the late 90s and early 2000s. Leah Remini. The King of Queens and Kevin Can Wait star can be heard lending her voice to Caroline Van Sant, a US Marshal who assists protagonist Madeline in the early going, speaking to her via a satellite phone. Even though Remini has a fairly distinctive voice and should be recognizable to fans of her sitcoms, context is key here. Did anyone ever expect her to appear in a high-octane thriller? I mean, the movie's kind of like a mid-octane thriller because it's not that good, but I digress. Remini's presence might have been jarring if she had a physical part in the movie, but as a voice role, she slots into the small ensemble just fine. Number 5. Jason Patric. Terrifier 3. Even though it was announced far ahead of time that the Lost Boys star Jason Patric would be appearing in slasher sequel Terrifier 3, the production kept quiet about precisely who he would be playing. This, combined with Patric's lower profile as an actor in recent years, made it easy to miss you were even looking at him at all when he showed up. Patric appears briefly in 2 dream sequences as Michael Shore, the late father of protagonist Sienna, played by Lauren Lavera, and her brother Jonathan, played by Elliot Fuller. Yet it's such a weirdly small role for Patric, and he's dressed down to the point that he's not immediately recognizable, enough that even card-carrying Lost Boys fans, and they are a die-hard bunch them, might not have spotted him. Given that most of Terrifier 3's cameos draw pretty blatant attention to themselves, namely Chris Jericho, Clint Howard, Tom Savini, and Dan Roebuck, it's surprising just how sly this one is, especially given the narrative importance of Sienna's father. Considering there's still much to learn about him though, it's quite possible we'll be seeing Patric in the role once again in Terrifier 4. Number 4. Julia Fox. Presence. Uncut Gem star and brat icon Julia Fox makes a blink and you'll miss it appearance at the beginning of Steven Soderbergh's new supernatural thriller Presence. In fact, she's the very first character we actually see in the film. At the start of the picture, the real estate agent who will show the Payne family around their future home frantically arrives at the house, clearly running late and rushing to do last-minute prep before the Paynes show up to view the abode. This character, credited under the name of Cece, is played by Fox, and yet because Presence is shot with a wide-angle lens and mostly natural light, we don't get a particularly clear close-up glimpse of the estate agent's face throughout the sequence. And so, you couldn't be blamed for missing that it was Fox at all. Number 3. Nathan Fillian. Deadpool and Wolverine. It might be the understatement of the century to say that Deadpool and Wolverine is one of the most cameo-packed films in the history of the MCU, if not cinema as a whole, but the overwhelming majority of those appearances draw total attention to themselves. Nobody came away from the film missing, say, Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Garner, or Channing Tatum, and even the subtler voiceover roles from the likes of Matthew McConaughey and Blake Lively as Cowboy Pool and Lady Pool respectively were fairly easy to spot. There is one exception though, and that is Firefly and Castle star Nathan Fillion, who lends his voice to another of the wild Deadpool variants featured in the film's third act, Headpool. Headpool is exactly what you think he is. A floating severed Deadpool head powered by a propeller, and he also gets a few quick lines of dialogue, with Fillian ultimately doing the deed. Fillian's voice isn't super recognizable in the grand scheme of things, especially when compared to the likes of McConaughey, and so he's easily missed here. While we expect to see Fillian show up in any MCU film directed by his good pal James Gunn, a random Deadpool sequel? Didn't feel like it was on the cards. Number 2. Jennifer Grey, A Real Pain. When folks were able to stop gushing about how really bloody good A Real Pain is, many expressed surprise upon discovering that one of the more prominent supporting characters was played by none other than Dirty Dancing star Jennifer Grey. Grey appears throughout the drama as Marcia, a recently divorced American woman who is part of the Jewish Heritage tour group, which David and his cousin Benji, played by Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin respectively, are a part of. But why would audiences en masse fail to realize it was Grey? Well, this is a famously decades-old story which Grey herself has spoken extensively about. Following the release of Dirty Dancing, Grey underwent 2 rhinoplasty procedures, resulting in substantial changes to her facial profile, enough that even close friends scarcely recognized her, let alone movie audiences. The change in appearance ostensibly had an immediate and detrimental impact on Grey's career, ensuring few high-profile roles were offered her way in subsequent years. By the early 2000s, she acted only sporadically, most often in TV work, and so it simply wasn't expected to see her show up in one of the most acclaimed films of 2024, decades removed from the beloved movie role which made her famous to begin with. And number 1, Talia Shier, Megalopolis. Talia Shier is best known for her Oscar-nominated performance as Connie Corleone in The Godfather Part 2 and love interest Adrian in Rocky, though has acted only intermittently over the last 20 years, most often in either films you've never heard of or projects directed by one of her many filmmaking relatives. But Shier did briefly show up in one of the most ambitious movies of last year, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. Sorry, it's too easy. Shier has a few fleeting scenes as Constance Crassus Catalina, the mother of protagonist Caesar, yet between her transformative costume and makeup, as well as the fact that general audiences likely haven't seen Shier on screen in a few dozen years, you probably didn't spot her. It's worth noting at this point, of course, that Shier is the sister of director Coppola, so it's not hugely surprising to see her showing up in her big brother's long-awaited comeback, even if she's not easily noticed.